Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage, and me, Ben Hocking, here today for our 2024 Championship review. And boy, Sam, there'd be a lot of races to look at.
Boy! I mean, 24 Grand Prix, the longest season of all time. We've got a lot of content to get through. As we discussed off air, I haven't done this, but you guys have often been researching furiously. So many things that you forget exist have cropped back up. I'm sure we're going to learn, all of us are going to learn many a thing that was small or nuanced or eventful that has been overshadowed. So much to talk about. So many winners, so many races, so many things going wrong, and so many upgrades that failed. There's a lot to get through.
Yeah, it's unusual that it's me that's done the notes and not Sam, to be honest. But you know, it's Christmas. Time for change.
New Year
Day.
Yeah.
New Year.
Lazy me.
Good.
We're going to go through absolutely all of the races, all 24 of them. Some of them we'll skip over fairly quickly if we don't think there's much to talk about. There were a few dud races in there, but some of them we'll spend a bit more time on. And then by the end of it, you will have gone through all of them in some capacity. So not that we're usually all that buttoned up, but this will be a fairly loose, unstructured chat as we go through. We'll start, of course, with Bahrain, where Red Bull be very good. You'll remember, quick testing review, GP Lambiase was happy.
Yeah.
That was pretty much testing. But Harry, if you look at the race itself, he had reason to be happy at that point, because not only did Verstappen, cruise to a dominant victory, something that didn't necessarily happen at the end of 2023, Perez was there alongside him in second place.
It started off okay for Sergio Perez, and then that was it. He did Bahrain. Red Bull were ridiculously. They were worryingly quick at this first race. And I didn't write this down, annoyingly, in my vast notes, but it was something like lap 10 or something, and Verstappen's like 12 seconds in front. Like, he's gone.
Yeah.
See you later. No one was touching Red Bull that race, and I think we all were thinking, oh no, what are we going to talk about for the next 23 races? But thankfully, there were things to talk about.
I think for Perez, now we look back on it with hindsight, you can see that despite him being second place, he was still nearly 23 seconds behind his teammate. There was a full pit stop between the both of them, and there were no issues for either of those cars. It's not like something had happened to Perez's car or anything. They were smooth sailing. So the fact that, yes, they got a 1-2, but the gap between teammates was so vast is really quite worrying. And obviously we go on to see how Perez has now had his points doubled by Verstappen across the season. It's not really a hidden sign there that things actually weren't going to plan for him after we saw the rest of the results.
I think that's fair. It was certainly a question at that time, given how confident Red Bull were. Were we essentially going to get a repeat of 2023? And at this early stage, it looked like maybe we will. Obviously, that was proven to be very wrong. But yeah, Verstappen starts the year about as well as he could do. I think he wins by a pit stop. Sergio Perez is a comfortable second place. We discussed this beforehand, like things that we've forgotten actually happened during the year. And that's particularly true of these early races, given how long ago they were. Do you remember Tsunoda and Ricciardo arguing?
Yeah.
Am I right, Barney?
And then Tsunoda dive bombs him after the race is finished.
Yeah. Completely forgot about that.
Yeah, me too. Also, and I know we knew they had a better start to the year, but Alonso was so high up in these early races, unreal.
Yep.
Speaking of high up and not so, Ferrari seemed to be by far the second fastest team in this. And you had this Mercedes-McLaren kind of 1-1-1-1 formation. It's now crazy to think that McLaren have turned it around so much that, as we now know, they went on to win the Constructors. Norris 6th and 8th. Well, Norris 6th, Piastri 8th.
Norris
really,
6th and 8th.
He's done both.
Wow.
Incredible work from Norris. Impressive stuff. Yeah, it's amazing to see that Norris finished nearly 50 seconds off Verstappen that Grand Prix, and come the end of the season, they win the title. It's really mad.
Yeah, at this point, you've basically got McLaren, Mercedes, and Aston Martin, who are all incredibly close to one another. And like, if you were to put together like some sort of chart of their race from that point on, of their season from that point on, it's basically McLaren, that I'm doing an upward motion. Aston Martin, the opposite, and Mercedes kind of somewhere in the middle. But they definitely didn't finish the year anywhere near one another is the whole point. Also here, Bottas's 52-second pit stop, which was a bad omen.
You know what? I completely forgot just how bad Sauber were at pit stops.
Yeah. That's what I'd written down. Sauber can't do pit stops, which I'd somehow forgotten at the start of this year. Awful. Poor Valtteri.
I think it's fair to say quite a few of these early races weren't necessarily bangers. We go to Saudi Arabia next, and I think the biggest highlight of this race was Magnussen's defensive tactics.
Yeah.
I loved it. That's something you can't forget. The ridiculous just driving straight across the corners like you're in some kind of F1 2024 online lobby without any corner cutting rules. And he was like, I'm just not letting you pass. You get past. I'm then coming back past again illegally. And I still respect it now.
There's also, the other highlight from Saudi is, can you bring it back, Lance? No, I'm in the effing wall.
So whiny.
I know, but also engineer. Look at the TV, my guy.
Yeah. Equally, Ollie Behrman, of course, makes his kind of introduction to Ferrari and does an absolutely sensational job finishing in front of Norris and Hamilton at that point. The key thing I thought here was that Perez seemed to kick on at this point. Whilst he still was over 10 seconds away from Verstappen, the gap was dropped by a good 10 seconds from the previous Grand Prix, and he had increased the gap to the Ferrari behind him. So it looked like he was becoming more settled. And again, without the value of hindsight, you'd almost think that he was warming up to this season and things were going to improve for him. So another 1-2, another brilliant result for Red Bull. We thought, season's looking very dull.
We move next to Australia for round 3. And here Verstappen is going for 10 wins in a row, but his quest to do so ends very early on. And Carlos Sainz, who obviously missed the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, goes on to claim victory, proving that appendix is overrated.
I don't need him.
Honestly, the shot of him still walking into the paddock afterwards, like just waddling, not moving his entire torso, has not left my mind.
I still think a number of months on from this race, and I know it's crazy because of how comfortably Verstappen won the 2 races before this and the 2 races after this, I still think Sainz might have had a chance to win anyway. I'm not convinced the Red Bull was actually that quick that weekend.
Ferrari were very quick.
Perez finished 5th, right? And I mean, Perez had been 2nd for the last 2 Grand Prix.
Yes.
So at this point, I think it's fair to say that the Red Bull probably wasn't on its A game. I mean, Stroll was bloody 6th in this race. So I think there was a changing of performance in the cars here. It might just be an outlier of the season. But it's crazy to me to see that, Sainz Leclerc 1-2, the previous Grand Prix, Leclerc is the closest car to the Red Bulls. The previous Grand Prix, Sainz is the closest car to the Red Bulls. And if they didn't muck it up in Canada, surely at this point you think they're the team that are going to be challenging Red Bull all the way to the end.
I also I got re-angered by the last lap of this race again with Russell and Alonso because I completely forgot that happened. That's made Ben choke. He's furious.
God, I can't even think about it.
Sick.
Stupid FIA.
A bit further down the order, Williams were in the news this weekend because they only had 1 car in the race, that of Alex Albon. But that was after Alex Albon crashed his car and Logan Sargent was forced to sit out as a result of that. It felt like, obviously, he was only a couple of races into his 2nd season, Logan Sargent, but to me, it felt like the biggest vote of no confidence that you could possibly have at that stage. I feel like the writing was on the wall from that point onwards.
Still something I disagree with, though. I know we could sit there and go that Sargent didn't turn into the driver Williams wanted him to be, and we all agreed as a show that he probably shouldn't have been given that 2nd-year extension, but they believed in him. They put him in that seat. I do think it was wrong at that point with how the car was developing and where they were sat in the pecking order to rip that away from him despite no fault of his own and give it back to Albon. You're right that is a real letdown in terms of why is he even here? What's the point of you driving?
One thing I forgot, Albon and Magnussen have a right ding-dong in this race.
Oh, big old... K-Mag has a few ding-dongs this season.
He does. It was the return of the box office, wasn't it, for him this year?
I loved it.
It's a shame it wasn't very, very fast, but...
But you'll have plenty of time to be fast at Red Bull next year.
This is very true.
Very slow and very silly.
Japan was up next, race 4. I've got to admit, of all of the races, this was probably the one I found most difficult to write anything about. Did anything happen in this race?
That time where they all came in the pits at the same time and Bottas could have got a point and they still fluffed it.
Yeah, 6 cars all pitting at once and Yuki Tsunoda's furious, and that's about it.
Wait, wasn't Yuki Tsunoda delighted?
Oh, I thought he was furious.
No, he was the last point scorer, so I imagine
He's the one. I think
But
he's the one that was.
don't you have to overtake them?
I thought he
Oh, this is a good
got out ahead of a load of cars and was like, "Yes, team, thanks so much."
Oh, I thought he's been sarcastic. All right, never mind.
Oh, maybe. I mean, that's
Man who doesn't understand the value of sarcasm.
Anyway, that's the only notable thing. And the Ricardo Albon crash at the start. That's about it, really. And Verstappen won again.
It kind of looks like we've returned to form, though, in the way that the races were running before Australia, where we've got the Red Bulls back to 1 and 2, the Ferraris are following them again, and it's kind of Norris with the Aston Martins and the Mercedes kind of trailing in that area. And you, again, would look at these first 4 or 5 Grand Prix now and go, Red Bull at the top of the pecking order, Ferrari are following them up. So really interesting to see that still at this point, even kind of 4 or 5 Grand Prix in, that order that we now know at the end of the season hasn't emerged. It shows you that development cycle is really flipped on its head come halfway through the season.
In fairness to Ferrari in this one, they do try. Like they give it a good go in that they go with alternate strategies. Like they left Leclerc out there for a very long time, whereas Sainz had more of a conventional strategy. Neither worked, but they did at least try 2 different things.
Yeah, still 20 seconds off the lead.
They did their due diligence to show that they really were slow, and I appreciate that.
Just proving to you guys, it's not us. It's not the strategy. The car's just not good.
Race 5, we move on to China, which was the first sprint of the season, I believe. Not that we're going to review sprints because they're not real races.
Exactly.
No, there was one point about the sprint I did want to bring up. Obviously, Hamilton got second, and fine, all well and good. But when you get onto, I think it was Russell that picked up their first silverware in Spain, I think, if not, maybe in Austria. LH Online had an absolute meltdown because Mercedes refused to credit Hamilton picking up the, in quotation marks, first silverware of the season. And they felt like they just abandoned him. And that blew up. That went crazy on Mercedes Instagram and Twitter.
Do you know what they need to do?
What's that, mate?
Grow up.
I've been a Merc fan ever since that day.
Because it's not
Anyone who doesn't acknowledge sprint races is good
not
in my books.
a podium. So grow up and get over it.
In the actual race, Fernando Alonso is running P2.
I forgot he started P3. What?
Yeah.
Why? How did this happen?
It's like dodgy weather, wasn't it? It was such a cold weekend there.
Yeah, he nails the start as well.
He does. We have, a bit later on in the race, we've got Lance Stroll crashing under the safety car with Daniel Ricciardo.
Just ram him.
Good
Ram
times.
And then deciding to have one of the most epic battles of the season with Kevin Magnussen over what was like 17th.
Another ding-dong battle, and it involves
quality,
Kevin Magnussen. No, it's a great battle. And unusual for some of the stuff we've seen this year. So, yeah, I appreciated rewatching that one. It was good.
I think you also referenced this one, maybe, Harry, on our last episode, but Fernando Alonso, after his great start, is forced to make a bit of a comeback on an alternate strategy. He does a good job of it. He very nearly bins it in the same place that Carlos Sainz binned it the day before in qualifying, that final corner. I watched this back.
How's he done that?
Boy.
How has he saved that?
Away with it.
Yeah, he is. Look, the Aston Martin was better at the start of the season than it was in the middle. Certainly than it was in the middle, and slightly better than it was at the end of the season. But I don't think it was as good as Alonso was making it look in those early races, because he is hustling with a capital H.
Flashbacks of 2012 popping into view a little bit.
Yeah, but he can't do 20 because that's 12 years ago and he's older now, so he can't keep up for a whole season. But yeah, I noted down here is great save, and then him passing Hamilton and Piastri on this alternate strategy towards the end of the race. But just that in itself, if you think where they are at the end of the year, that in itself seems very strange.
Yep. Yeah, they also got fastest lap that Grand Prix. That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Miami is up next, and I feel like we can just put a bit of a line down the season at this point of Red Bull are dominant to Red Bull are not dominant, because we turn up to Miami, and whilst Verstappen does get pole and is competitive early on, he doesn't take the race win here. Instead, it's Lando Norris who takes his first career win, helped out by a safety car. But I remember a point that you made on the review for this episode. I think it was Harry, who thought he might have been able to win this race anyway, Lando Norris.
I stand by that, I think. Because he stays out. That's how he gains advantage on the safety car. But he's pulling away from Verstappen, who's on fresh tyres, and Norris is on old hards or whatever it was. I think this is the first race. I think there was a lot of debate afterwards as to whether he was just lucky with it, but no one was willing to trust the fact that McLaren actually had a good car at this point, and we were just going with he was lucky, and he was fortunate with the safety car, but McLaren had cracked the car by this point, I think, and this was the start of it. That car was about to become the best car of the season.
I'll tell you what, everyone was cracking the car for Oscar Piastri and the other McLaren, though. He got driven into about 3 times in this Grand Prix.
Also, Sergio Perez just really trying his best to take out Verstappen at turn 1.
I still don't know how he
has he not done that?
Oh, Sergio. Yeah, I mean, there's every chance that Norris catches on real pace, and it does seem like this is the start of what we now see as the title charge. I do wonder if it came down to it. We've seen Verstappen go toe-for-toe defending, and we know how good he can be in placing that car in the right place. I don't know. It'd be interesting to have watched them go wheel-to-wheel properly for that race win.
Yeah, the pace that Lando Norris had post-safety car was really impressive, and I can't remember the exact win margin, but it was just under 10 seconds, I think.
Got it here for you, Ben. It's 7.6 seconds.
Pretty good going after a safety car period to open up that kind of gap. So it would have been interesting to see if on pure pace he did have enough. And earlier on in the race as well, Piastri really did show good pace as well. So yeah, this feels like, again, the point where you can almost say, okay, everything pre this race, pre-Miami, PM, is Red Bull dominance. Everything after this point is up for discussion. The other thing, not a race-related thing, but another thing that almost cements the theory of it being 2 parts of the season, Adrian Newey announces he's leaving this weekend.
Of course. How could we forget?
Again, you look at everything after Adrian Newey decides to leave.
You're still kind of stumbling around from taking the hit of Lewis Hamilton announcing he's leaving. Adrian Newey comes in with the big left fist straight to the jaw. There's us all on the ring. Absolutely.
I'm leaving as well.
Yeah, boom. And we're out of here. That was a crazy year. It's been a crazy year for news. We've had a lot of announcements.
Big announcements all year long.
2024, big announcements.
Big A.
Well, we've got plenty more to talk about after this first break. We're going to head into the European season. Welcome back, everyone. The European season started with the Imola Grand Prix, or whatever they called it this year.
San Marino Grand Prix.
Yeah, hold on. Sure. I've got it written down here. It's the Formula One MSC Cruises Gran Premio del Made in Italy de Emilia Romagna 2024 race. There you go.
Yeah, like I said,
we're
San
going to take
Marino.
our second break right after this.
Very good.
Goodness me. It wasn't that good.
Oh, stinker. Absolute stinker of a race. It only got good right at the end.
Yeah, the highlight was watching Norris cut the gap down lap after lap. And you kind of think, we're at Imola. There's pretty much one chance for him to make this move, and it never really came.
Main highlight is actually, as he's doing that, there's a shot, or there's a one lap, where he, within like 3 corners, he has like 2 massive saves. And it's just like...
Norris is on boards last few laps.
Boy, calm down. Yeah, it's pretty spicy, but yeah, it wasn't a great race, that one.
No. The one note I did make about the whole Verstappen versus Norris battle that kind of delivered, but Verstappen was able to hold Norris off, was Verstappen picked up a black and white flag on lap 25 of this race, which meant he had a long way to go without having to do any more track limits. And I mean, sure, he got himself in trouble in the first place, but the way in which he had no margin for error in that fight and still came out on top, I thought was quite impressive.
I mean, you look at many of the other race results that he went on to win throughout previously that season, the gap was far big enough that if he picked up a 3-second penalty, he could run with it all day long. A 5-second penalty, even a 10-second penalty in some instances, he'd still go on and win that Grand Prix. So, yeah, the margin for error there was 0.
The next 2, well, I know who wins the next 2, but, you know, the next 3 at least, because he's in the fight in Austria, is all Max Verstappen and not that car. It's the beginning of him fighting with one hand tied behind his back, this being the first one with Norris closing him down.
Yeah.
Obviously we go to Spain.
After Monaco, which I know we're going to get onto, it is the period where he wins that title at that point. I think that's the difference maker between kind of Spain through to Zandvoort-ish just before that. That's the difference maker.
So Imola was a bit of a stinker. Monaco next.
Would you say it's a cut above the rest?
I would say it was whatever the opposite of that is.
You've let your hair grow.
If you remember, folks, there was an attempt to start the race. The first lap, we get a red flag due to, Perez, Magnussen, and Hulkenberg having contact in Sector 1. We then also have Carlos Sainz going off a little bit later on in the lap. We then also have Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly fighting, where Gasly tries to kill Ocon for no reason. Yes, folks, I did get that the right way around. So there's contact there, and obviously ramifications of that we'll talk about very shortly. And then on the second attempt, where everyone can just change their tyres because that's how red flag rules work, Charles Leclerc is able to claim his first home victory. So it was a good moment, Sam, for Leclerc, but not necessarily a great race.
Yeah, I tell you what, anyone that's won a Grand Prix at that track before wins that race that isn't Leclerc, it's forgotten. It is immediately forgotten as a Grand Prix. It's only going to be remembered because it is Leclerc's first home win, and that'll be it. I mean, you have Piastri behind, 7 seconds back. I tell you who's a lucky man, Carlos Sainz, of course. He kind of finished before that red flag with a massive puncture, and it basically saved his race, and he goes on to pick up a podium. So it was a dull Grand Prix, unfortunately. Despite all of the drama that took place, it didn't exactly make it a thriller.
Yeah, I know you love Monaco, Harry, but red flag really hurt that one, didn't it?
Yeah, that's the red flag's fault, not Monaco. So
there is a valid point.
No, there is. We've talked about this before, but I don't like the changing your tyre rule under a red flag. So I know they're never going to win necessarily on this one, but it in this case it certainly hurt it because strategy is the only thing really we have in a race in Monaco, or the weather. And they took that away from us. So then we just watched Charles Leclerc gap the rest of the field.
Likely terrified that he might put it into a wall at any moment, or the car might break down.
Yeah. My highlight from this race is actually from that original first lap, when Nico Hulkenberg is just trying to avoid the apocalypse that's happening around him.
Yes, what does he say? That was unnecessary, or something like that over team radio.
Having the biggest crash in the world next to him. He's just like, please, 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 please. Oh, no, I've been hit. Never mind.
I still can't believe... I know Kevin Magnussen didn't get a penalty for this, because if he did, he would have got his ban at this point rather than later on in the season. I still think that's on Magnussen.
Just back out of it, mate. Where are you going to go?
Quick, serious point on the Ocon-Gasly crash. Because it definitely was Ocon's fault.
Yep.
But for goodness me, talk about an overreaction. It's not the most stupid thing that happened all season. Come on.
I mean, Max Verstappen might argue that the move was on. He was technically alongside at the apex.
It wasn't completely off the cards. It was ambitious, and the timing of it was questionable.
Oh, your teammate was a bad call.
Yes, it was, for sure. It's just in
but
terms
sacking
of
the lad,
egregious overtakes, I feel like at this point they were looking for an excuse.
But why? That's what I want to know. I wonder why they were. Was he just unbearable to work with? Surely not.
It's too tall.
That's it. Cut off his legs up to the knees. And
he was fairly tall, isn't he?
Cut off his legs up to the knees.
Last comment on Monaco, because there was one other thing, which was Fernando Alonso selflessly making a gap for Lance Stroll to come out with, and Lance Stroll goes and hits the wall.
I forgot this.
Also does such a good job holding everyone up. Stroll comes out of the pits and he pins it.
You must be furious. What are you doing, man?
Oh, no.
Oh, I can hear it now. World champion. I can hear him say it again. Future world champion.
Oh, dear.
Moving on from one of the most dull races of the season to one of the most exciting, Canada. One where we were together, actually, if you'll remember back.
We were.
And went to Fruxton earlier in the day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, that was that weekend.
Yeah. And Kirsty had a pizza.
What a photo.
Not that we're blackmailing her, but we've got it.
We've got
that photo of Kirsty and a pizza.
We've got photos.
Picture it didn't happen, but we got them.
Anyway, the Canadian Grand Prix that we'll actually talk about. You remember qualifying the top two at the same lap time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's never happened there before.
I don't think it has.
Not there, it hasn't. Jerez it has.
I thought at Canada, 3 of them did it.
That's Jerez.
Oh,
That's
I thought
Spain.
2 of them did it.
That's in Spain.
That's in Spain.
Different continent.
Jacques Villeneuve is Canadian and he was one of the 3 drivers.
That's a good point.
My brain does make tedious links.
Yeah, I was about to say
like that.
Sam's doing tedious link.
Oh, that does happen a lot with my head. So it's because they all hit the wall. That's what I'm thinking of. Hence the name.
What's the name?
World of Champions.
Oh, thank you, mate. We have an exciting start to this Grand Prix because conditions are not great, meaning nearly all of the drivers are starting on intermediate tyres, with the exception of 2 brave Haas cars on the wet tyres.
Yes.
Kevin Magnussen in particular, for a while, that really works.
Mugging off everyone.
How did their race end up, Ben?
Well, to be fair, they botched it themselves by giving Magnussen like a stupidly long pit stop. Otherwise, I think it might have actually been a good strategy. But
It was close, wasn't it? I think they finished literally about a second away from Ocon, who picked up the last points finish. So it was close enough.
out front, though, we have a pretty exciting battle. We have Verstappen, Norris, and Russell all lead this race at one point. I don't know about you. I know Verstappen had a couple of close calls and Monaco didn't go his way. To me, this race weekend was the one where I was like, he might be in trouble, even though he won.
Yeah, because he really he had to work for it, didn't he? And
Yeah.
it was kind of fortunate, I guess. Was he fortunate with a safety car? I can't quite remember. Anyway, either way, not that he was lucky. He'd certainly earned it, but that was a tough one for him to win.
It was Verstappen again elevating the car
Yeah.
rather than, it was tricky weather and he pulled away. I think he ended up winning by about 3 seconds in the end. So great drive from Max again.
And also, don't worry about getting all of your tyre strategies wrong, Ferrari. It won't come back to hurt you and you won't lose the Constructors' Championship because of this race alone.
This is the one thing that tripped them up, isn't it? The upgrade went wrong. The car was poo. And then they got everything wrong every single time.
Yeah, I've just written Ferrari lol.
Yeah, that's correct. One final thing I wanted to bring up for this Grand Prix was Alex Albon's disgustingly filthy move that he pulled going into that final chicane.
I tell you what, next episode is the LB Awards. You might not have heard the last about that move this season.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. Yeah, it's a great move.
Yes, you're absolutely right with that. We now go back to Europe because, again, Europe to North America to Europe is the sensible and most carbon efficient way to do the calendar. We go back to Spain. Lando Norris takes pole position here, but it's Max Verstappen who takes a narrow win after what was not a great start from Lando Norris, but a fantastic start from George Russell. He goes from 4th to 1st, going prime Fernando Alonso here. That was not bad.
No, that's pretty sweet from George Russell. But this is the start of Norris's can he do race starts conversation. This is where it really kicked off because that cost him big time.
To be fair to Norris, and it wasn't a great start. He fended off Verstappen. It was just George Russell had the toe of all toes behind behind Norris, Verstappen, and Leclerc, and was just like, I'm gonna zoom past a lot of
He
you
really
here.
threw one final Leroy Jenkins into the mix.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Kamui.
Goodness me.
I agree. I think of all of his poor starts this season,
It's the best
this
one.
yeah, genuinely, I think this is like the least egregious one for those reasons that you stated. One's like, remember like Zandvoort, where he lost the lead at turn 1. I think that was far worse than, say, this one, where you're right, Russell picks up an almighty toe, and he keeps that lead for
3 laps.
3 laps, was it? At which point we essentially have Verstappen versus Norris again, which was a pretty entertaining one.
Yeah, proper ding dong.
Well, again, a lot of these Verstappen winning, but with Norris chasing him hard behind in these sort of middle, well, not even middle, but kind of middle part of the season. But again, it's just that's what I'm saying earlier. It's Verstappen just clinging on and getting wins where he shouldn't do. Canada here, and Imola, I guess, as well.
Yeah, Imola, Canada, Spain, 3 and 4 races. That was, for me, the stretch that he really proved himself. We have a great run of races at this point, by the way, just generally. Canada's brilliant. Spain's fairly good. We now go to Austria. To be fair to this race, it wasn't brilliant.
And then it was.
And then it was.
Yeah.
Verstappen and Norris for the first time have contact, and it gives George Russell maybe the most fortunate win of his career. I have put a question here of, should Oscar Piastri have won this race?
I think we said this at the time, that he realistically, if he qualified better and hadn't mucked it up in the final sector, the car was comfortably good enough at this point. He finishes a couple of seconds behind Russell. He should be the car in third to have taken that, gathered up the pieces, so to speak, and won that Grand Prix. Russell was driving an absolute dreamboat. He shouldn't have been there. He was miles away from that top two. There was enough space for Piastri at this point to fill in, but Piastri hadn't hit his peak yet. He only just started coming back into form. So it kind of happened at a negative time for Piastri.
The incident aside, having revisited this, I'm just almost left frustrated by Norris, because I'm just like, he should have got this done so much earlier than it. Well, he doesn't get it done, obviously, but before the accident, should have got it done so much earlier. And he's just sort of outfoxed quite a lot by Verstappen on this.
Quite a theme throughout the season, isn't it? That we see Max defending, Norris unable to 4, 5, 6 times in a row getting the move done. You can look at Kota as another key example of that, where we had the controversy with the penalty. Max's defensive placement is just so good at frustrating Norris and not meaning that the overtake can actually be carried out properly.
Yeah. Norris got desperate on a couple of occasions in this race as well. Like he overshoots into turn 3 like twice, was it? Like the first time he can't keep the car on track at all. The second one, I think he nearly does, but in both instances, it's not really under control in any way. I think you're right about he should have got this move done earlier than when the incident occurred.
Also, Toto Wolff getting way too overexcited about the first win since 2022.
I can't believe we didn't talk about Alonso with his stupid hand movements in Canada.
That was in 2023, mate.
Everything lives in my brain in 1 year.
We did that on last year's review.
Something I do want to talk about for Austria is Haas. Look like they finally started to turn it around, right? Double points finish, 6th and 8th. It looks like they finally... Komatsu's turned on the gas, is what he's done here. He's gone, I'm not cooking with this wood naff stuff outside. I'm going to put the pan on the stove and I'm turning the gas on, and he started cooking.
Yeah, because Hülkenberg does a really good job on the last lap of seeing off Sergio Perez, because he's very... I can't remember exactly what he did, but he's very clever with the DRS. And he plays it perfectly to the point where he gets the DRS and he's able to hold off Perez. Yeah, that's absolutely a good point to say that Haas's good season almost starts at this point. 2 other notes I've got here. More Alpine banter. Because, they have a little argy-bargy. And also, Alonso just murdered Zhou Guanyu.
For no reason.
I forgot about that. Just drove straight into him.
It's a proper murder.
Yeah.
Did he break? Don't know.
No, well, he used Zhou.
Zhou was the break. I don't even know where to start with this one. Silverstone's up next.
It's up there for race of the season.
Wow.
Tune into the
LB
LB
have
Awards.
to find out, yes. Lewis Hamilton seals his first victory in, 2.5 years at this point? Obviously a home win for him as well. You've got him in the fight. You've got both Mercedes in the fight early on. Both McLaren's pretty good when the conditions change. Harry, where do you want to start with this one?
I mean, firstly, the 4-way fight when the rain starts to fall is epic. That's excellent. That's excellent F1 at its peak. The fact that the Mercedes are really quick early on, then the rain starts to come, then the McLarens are really quick, and the Mercedes is somewhat terrible in the damp conditions. It all kicks off. But the 4-way battle was excellent. Russell got pole. Remember, we had a Brit top 3 as well on the grid. Russell got pole, but then proper Brexit quality it was.
Martin Brundle.
Yeah, Michael Maxwell's moustache.
Martin Brundle was excellent. Snetterton in the mountains.
Fancy going Norfolk at the weekend.
Yeah,
yeah, with my top off.
But yeah, Russell was unlucky because he has a mechanical failure in the end, which is unfortunate for him. He's going to be like Jenson Button, isn't he? He's never going to have a good result at Silverstone.
Don't say that.
It's just never gonna happen. One year he was on his roof. This year he got pole, and then it didn't happen. Yeah, and it was a chaotic race, and at the end it was Mercedes and Hamilton that made the right call with to go back onto the dry tyres, I think, isn't it? Because that's what gets him the lead in the end versus McLaren's. This is a race. This is the start of being fast, but being silly for McLaren because
they were really silly.
They should have been one to
themselves with this.
Silly boys and girls.
Silly boys.
On both sides of the garage as well.
Yeah. It wasn't just a Norris thing or a Piastri thing. It was just bad call after bad call. It was like a tug of war throughout the Grand Prix, the way this kind of, like you said, Harry, the form book changed for Mercedes being really, really quick, built out of lead. The rain kind of sprinkled. And we haven't seen something like this for a while where two teams with both drivers simultaneously kind of caught, overtake, and then get caught again and pass again, and then pit stops come into it. And in all of that, there's a little plucky man called Max Verstappen just nibbling away at this battle that's going on. And the fact he's ending up less than 2 seconds away from first place, again, it's like another champion's drive from him. Didn't win it, but it's just the consistency to be on the podium and not drop points with a couple of people around him. Beats Norris again. It was such a good drive. I reckon this might go underrated for Max Verstappen, just how important and how good a race like this was for him.
As I was sat in the stands there, I am so glad that he did not catch up to Lewis Hamilton at the end, because I'd have had to run for my life. If they'd cut, because Hamilton's not going to let that one go easily.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank God he didn't, and Hamilton won, and it was what great scenes it was.
What an excellent time had by all.
No riots here. No one took their tops off. It was fine.
A merry day for merry men and women together.
And that will be the end of this podcast. Thank you ever so much. Good night.
Happy New Year Day.
Happy New Day.
Also, Ferrari still don't know how tyres work at this point, because Leclerc's on the wrong tyre, of course he is. Him and Perez and a couple of others. Anything else? You've already basically said this, Sam. Verstappen's second place finish here. For a man who has won so many races, this second place finish is one of his best of the season, I think. That car did not have a right to be second.
When he passed Norris, again, because they were fast but silly, you just think, how has he done it? He wasn't involved in this fight the entire time, and suddenly he's turned up again. And the fact that he's finished there and Perez is 17th tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. And I do think this was a massive wasted opportunity for McLaren. Piastri's left out one lap too late for his pit stop. Lando Norris, if you remember, he overshoots his entry into the pit box, which costs him a few seconds in terms of his pit stop time. But equally, he's probably a lap too late anyway. So it felt like Mercedes and Red Bull were very on it, where McLaren weren't. Should we take our second break at this point? We're going to Hungary after this. Welcome back, everyone. We continue the last few races of the European leg of this season. We're in Hungary next, where, boy, McLaren be quick.
What else are they, Ben?
They're a bit silly.
Oh, they're so silly.
So silly.
But, I mean, at least they got the result here.
Yeah, 1-2. First time that they've had a 1-2 in a bloody long time. And incredibly deserved. They were the most dominant car. This is probably the most dominant we've seen them for a long time. It fit their car perfectly well. But that radio communication between those two drivers and the way they mucked up the pit stops because they brought in, was it Piastri first? Even though he was second at that point.
They brought in Norris
first, but he wasn't leading, so he shouldn't have had priority, but they were covering off Verstappen.
That was it. And then they kept saying, please give it back. It's our fault.
Harry, I know you'll do the right thing.
I know you'll do the right thing.
Come on.
Oh, the absolute guilt tripping over the radio. Ridiculous. So, but yeah, still a bloody good result for McLaren. And this is the start of McLaren being that properly dominant car, I think. This is the first race that you sit there and say, now McLaren are probably, look into my eyes, we are the first place now.
Beautifully managed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff from McLaren. What a bunch of muppets they were this race. And luckily, they were only overshadowed that evening by Joe Biden announcing he wasn't going to run for president again.
That's the same day.
Sorry, how have you worked that out? Why is your
Because
brain
I
like a
remember
weird
it.
calendar?
I remember it, yeah. Because that was a big McLaren PR storm. And then Joe Biden's like, don't worry, Zach, I've got you, mate.
He's a papaya, secretly.
Papaya rules.
I don't know. If you cast your minds back to Miami, I don't know if he is.
Well, well, speaking of papaya. Anyway, yeah, it was terribly managed from McLaren. The fact they still came away with a 1-2. They're very fortunate. Also very fortunate that Max Verstappen was the world's angriest man this day.
Lewis Hamilton is lucky to be driving a tank. Because that car should not have carried on running to get a podium.
He was so mad.
Do you know what Verstappen should have done?
What's that, mate?
Got good night's sleep.
He should have done.
Hook up nice and early.
Yeah.
No sim racing through
No
the night.
video games.
Come on.
I also love that Lewis Hamilton afterwards was just like, well, that's just shrugged it off like it's been driven into a
Yeah,
full
but that
He
they're
was a
used
week
to
removed
it.
from winning at Silverstone.
Yeah. Max still hung over. He's like, all right, then.
Also-
You just crashed into me.
GP, we know how good GP is as Max Verstappen's engineer, but by the end of that race, when that happens, and Verstappen's fully raging at this point, GP's just like, I'm just not going to get into this now. I've had enough of your rubbish. Shut up. We're not getting this. We're not arguing over the radio.
You know what he did, mate? You know what he did?
Move on.
He put his foot down. He's like, sit on the naughty step.
Yeah.
I'm not listening.
I'm not listening, Max. Whatever. I don't care what you're going to say, but bye now.
1 minute for every world title you've got.
Which is 3 at this point.
3 at this point.
So a pretty dominant victory for McLaren on this day. I feel like this also starts, by the way, one of the greatest stretches of form of the season of Charles Leclerc, because he's very good here, but Ferrari aren't very good, and that's basically the story for the next 3 races. So
Yeah.
You have to think that if that upgrade went well for Ferrari and Leclerc also hit this purple patch, there's every chance he could be winning Grand Prix at this point.
quite possibly. Let's go to Spa next, where George Russell's one stop gives him the win momentarily before he gets a post-race penalty, which gives the win to his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, we know that the race result was changed after the fact, but pretty good call on strategy from George Russell, wasn't it?
This is what I love about George Russell. He's so just out there with his thinking that he's not afraid to just say, you know what, guys, let's just do it. Let's just try this out. I reckon this could work. And that is the thing that might win him a title one day. By going, I'm not going to be reserved. I'm not going to be nervous about it. I'm just going to say, let's go for it. Some days it will result in him being 8th place because his tyres are going and he's nowhere. But some days he will win a Grand Prix. And okay, it was taken off him because of the weight issue, which you can't really blame him for. But he won that race. That was him. He called it. He drove it. He won it. And I bet Hamilton was sat there being like, I have done everything I need to do to win this Grand Prix. This pesky little man from posh England
tall
has
man.
turned up. Yeah, well, exactly. Tall Woody has turned up and taken it off me by half a bloody second. I'm sure Lewis was secretly smiling in the back of the car when he got told that he won that one afterwards. But Russell pulled a blinder.
I know it doesn't count, but George Russell's best win. I know Vegas is very good, but that's his best win in my book.
He manages that so well.
Yeah, and the cool. You're right. George Russell can read a race. There are not a lot of drivers that read races as well as him. Alonso's pretty good at it. But he can read a race and just is not afraid to make a call. But the actual then you can make calls and then be terrible. But he was very, very good with it, and his saving enough tyre towards the end to fend off Hamilton when he's right behind him, I think was very good. It's a real shame that it actually got taken away from him. But he knows he did it, I guess.
I would say it's probably Hamilton's biggest weakness, actually, is the ability to look past his strategy. Hamilton makes up for it by just raw pace, like we saw on many occasions. But yeah, that Russell, who may be on both their perfect days, Hamilton will be the faster driver, but Russell might be able to outthink him in terms of the whole long game, which is very interesting.
Prime example of that with Hamilton was it Qatar this year when he came out, or somewhere at the end of the season where he came out in lapped traffic and he was like, "Why am I last?"
Was that Brazil?
Oh,
Might have been Brazil.
Vegas.
Oh, it was Las Vegas.
Yes. Oh yeah. Why am I last? Ends up second place.
Yeah, you're not.
They haven't picked yet, mate. You've seen a Sauber.
But I think they're all lapped down. Anyway, yeah.
I might throw Carlos Sainz in there as well as a
thinker.
Good race strategist
Agreed.
within the car. But yeah, it's an excellent performance from Russell. Piastri's also got pretty good pace here. Obviously, he catches right up to the Mercedes, where Lando Norris doesn't have a good weekend, and Max Verstappen has a penalty which really hurts him, even though he does come back quite well. I think Oscar Piastri did a good job, almost with those two a bit more absent from that fight for the win. Also, Leclerc was on pole, and I know he was technically second, but how?
Yeah,
that car should not have been on pole. But also, the race proved it.
His race performance, though, it proved that he shouldn't have been on pole. But the way he held off Verstappen and Norris for so many laps, I would argue in cars that were at that point superior, was sensational from Leclerc. Again, like you said a minute ago, this is part of that run of incredible Grand Prix Leclerc put together, which is, if you listen to power rankings for us, one of the reasons why, for some of us, he was right up there as one of the drivers of the season. And this is the kind of race that proves that.
Zandvoort up next. Norris was pretty good here. I don't think there was actually much to say about this one.
I've written Norris bottles the start, Norris wins.
Yeah.
Nothing else happens.
I shall not comment further.
I mean, Norris wins this race by over 20 seconds despite that start and having to overtake Verstappen. I think he could have won this by about 4 years if he wanted to.
Do you know, this is the debut of F1's graphic of statement made, which I sense they just did.
Yeah.
They did for this race, but because there was such a hoo-ha about it, they've carried it on for the rest of the season. I'm not buying your rubbish here, F1. You got caught out.
Yeah, I agree. They went, oh, this is a fun little thing to do. And everyone went, why have you only done this for Norris now?
Oh, we'll do it for everything.
Also, this is probably a little bit of not a sad moment for Piastri, but he probably let himself down here a little bit. He was very far away from his teammate, wasn't even on the podium. Leclerc, again, somehow, it's one of those races where you can imagine Leclerc getting out of the car and being like, how am I third here? How has this happened again? Because he's absolutely smashed it.
Season.
But yeah, exactly. That's true. But the fact that he was going to be 30 seconds behind his teammate, we've mentioned it with Perez at the start of the season behind Verstappen, nearly 30 seconds off his teammate is not a good look.
One small moment further back in the field, Kevin Magnussen being overtaken by everyone.
Yeah.
All on that start-finish straight. I think it was 4 cars got past him.
Oh, yeah. He's just like, do you know, I don't want to do this.
I think he's doing his classic, I'm holding people up for Hulkenberg job. But his tyres just go and everyone just sails past him.
Oh, never mind, K-Mag.
You gave it a good go. The Italian Grand Prix, the last European race, and Charles Leclerc manages to hold off Oscar Piastri to win on a one-stop strategy, giving Leclerc at this point at least, 2 wins on the season. One of them at his home race and one of them at his team's home race. But this was a pretty epic one.
The strategic masterclass from Ferrari, words I never thought would leave my mouth at that point. They pulled the wool over McLaren's eyes. No one thought he was a threat. No one thought it was viable. Boom, I'll just win the race. Thanks. Cheers for coming. Cheers for playing.
It was, yes, good strategy, but Leclerc was a god that day. God Leclerc.
Sainz wasn't second.
Yeah.
True. Sainz is 4th, I think.
Yeah.
Also, Piastri pulls Norris's pants down on that one.
I mean, he does. That was a filthy move.
Yeah, that's up there with move of the season.
Forgot about it. He absolutely mugs him blind.
Round the outside of that chicane, are you having a laugh? Is he having a laugh?
Yeah, I'm a laugh.
That's a good reference.
And it was still at this point as well, I guess, only a few races removed from Hungary, that there were these ongoing questions about what McLaren should do in terms of their team orders. And Piastri's answer was that.
Yeah, was this Papaya Rules race?
Oh, God.
It's Papa rules now.
Papa rules now.
So good. So good. Also, this is the introduction to Colapinto.
It is. And he has a fairly low-key race here, which is understandable, but that won't stay the same.
No, yeah, it's obviously that point happened where Sargent they kept him over the summer break and then deciding, no, actually, we don't want to keep him anymore. And then Colapinto got to go and the Riz Master rizzed up everybody.
Yeah.
It still doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they waited for this point rather than do it at the summer break. I still think there was something relating to Antonelli here that didn't come through.
with the age thing that the FIA went through, right? The whole be able to drive under the age of 18. You don't go through that and then never put anything across.
Speaking of him, he was announced this weekend and celebrated it by trying to do a qualifying lap in FP1.
In the boogies.
Oh, he did it.
Sorry.
And then tried it a second time.
Tried it again. He was like, that was really good. I would do that again.
And together he doesn't know how to go slower.
Watch this.
So Jeremy Clarkson will crash 3 seconds later.
We now go to Baku for the next race, where we have a very entertaining battle for the lead between Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, and even Carlos Sainz is in contention come the end of this race. So we've got multiple drivers out front. We've got Oscar Piastri again, turn one. What a move on Charles Leclerc that obviously helps him win this race.
Yeah, I think Oscar Piastri might be the overtaker of the season. Matt just rocks up and gets the job done. No mucking about, no funny business. It's like, see you later, I'm gone. Wins the race by over 10 seconds in the end of it. Keeps his tyres going. I think that was the most impressive part. Leclerc's tyres fell off an absolute cliff, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I think Russell lucks into the luckiest podium again after there was a crash, of course, going into, what was it, turn 3 or something like that?
Was out on turn 2.
It was on the straight, wasn't it, really?
It just crashed in a straight line. Perez and Sainz.
That was it. And that was when they were both claiming going in a straight line, but there's no way both of you could be going in a straight line.
Yeah.
Looking back on it from both of their perspective, how unnecessary was it? Like, Perez has the opportunity to have his best performance, maybe of the season, but certainly since the first couple of races of the year. And Sainz obviously has a good opportunity to get some points for Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Just, they're going in a straight line. It's just so ridiculous.
Did Norris go out in Q1 of this race? He did, didn't he? Silly
He did.
Boy.
Well, I don't remember if it was his fault or not. It was...
Was there a red flag or something at the end of Q1?
Yeah, it was either yellows or a red flag, but his last lap in Q1 was disrupted, which certainly helped him exiting. There was also a case of if he did a slightly better first lap in Q1, he wouldn't have quite been in that situation anyway. So it might be one where it's 50-50 split on the blame, but yeah. He was out in Q1 and he does a very good recovery, to be fair.
I finishes P4 after, again, the accident, which if Sainz and Perez hadn't come together, this again might have kept Ferrari in that constructors fight in that last Grand Prix, because they were, as a team, outscoring McLaren. Also, Colapinto, absolute Goliath of a performance, beats Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, both Williams in there. Colapinto just behind his teammate.
Yeah. And Max Verstappen had a weird off weekend here as well, whereas Perez was very much in the fight all weekend. Verstappen never really had the same pace of his teammate.
It's a one-off. We'll let him happen.
I did have one extra note, actually, which was the first lap again. Yuki Tsunoda and Lance Stroll, claiming that Tsunoda turned in on him. It just wasn't that at all.
That didn't happen.
It really didn't happen.
No, Lance, that didn't happen.
I respect it. Where are we going next? We're off to Singapore next, where Lando Norris attempts to crash at least 3 times in the Grand Prix, but manages to avoid it, and is otherwise pretty dominant with Verstappen in second place. McLaren and Lando Norris, if you think about Singapore, Netherlands, and Hungary, these sort of tight and twisty tracks, they had a real advantage at this point in the season.
Yeah, Aero was their friend, and they did very well at these outlier circuits that seemed to fall into their lap a little bit. This was at the beginning, really, when we were thinking there's a title charge on here. You know, Verstappen versus Norris is becoming a real thing, and Verstappen did such a brilliant job, even though he was 21 seconds behind Norris, by finishing in second place, and again minimising the damage that Norris has done. Piastri not able to get past him says a lot, and by not getting past him, I mean was another 21 seconds behind Max Verstappen, nearly 40 seconds away from his teammate. But I imagine if you're a McLaren fan, watching Norris nearly put it in the wall 3 times across that Grand Prix was like having a mini heart attack every time.
Yeah, I've written one note for this race, and it was Norris was really good, brackets, apart from the times he tried to crash by himself.
I love your note, sorry.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, because one of the places he nearly crashes is the same place where George Russell crashed the year before in the fight for that win.
And if you remember, that's where Norris touched the wall the year before, which caused Russell to crash.
Yes, very true.
And Ferrari absolutely mucked it up again.
Yeah, they didn't have a great one here.
They had good pace at this point. It's like the car had started to come back to them, and this was not good.
Another very important point on this one, Daniel Ricciardo's last race.
Watching his sad little eyes when he didn't really know what was happening to him was really quite sad.
I think the sad thing is he did know what was happening to him.
Well, no one bothered to tell him.
Worst PR I've ever seen in my life.
I thought you were going for a Simpsons reference.
Worst PR ever.
He does get the fastest lap, at least, to end the Grand Prix.
Well done, Danny Rick.
He'll remember that one forever, I'm sure. Yeah.
Right, let's take our final break on this episode. We've got 6 more races to go to see off this championship. Welcome back, everyone. Next race, we saw in person.
Woo!
United States Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, where Charles Leclerc takes the win and Lando Norris and Max Verstappen have a duel.
That's a very minimalistic way of phrasing it.
Sure.
They do have a duel. Yeah, turn 1, Leclerc's like, all right, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, and then didn't look back for the rest of the race. He was supreme.
I think Ferrari might have ended up being the fastest car anyway here. You know,
It would have been even better if we'd been able to find that out.
yeah, if they just overtaken them out of pure pace and not because 2 cars decided that we're just going to focus only on each other. And this was a theme that ended up happening for a few Grand Prix, which we'll get onto.
And then, obviously, the battle with Norris and Verstappen, which happened right in front of our very eyes into turn 12.
Multiple times.
Yeah, which was not controversial at all.
Ignoring that moment, we brought it up a couple of times. Verstappen's car placement, the defensive maneuvers that he was applying before that happened, it shows you why he is where he is. Because even when he is struggling for pace, it's so bloody difficult to get past the man. And he made that clear again in an instance where Norris, much like in Austria, is unable to just get the overtake done and dusted and move on with his day.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, definitely. The other notable point on this Grand Prix was Lewis Hamilton binned it by himself, which he claimed was the first time that it had ever happened in his career. At which point we turn around. Well, actually, 15 years ago, 2009, you binned it, Lewis.
Yeah, amateur.
So actually, it's the
Really proves the
second time in 17 years.
The fact that we had to go back 15 years to actually find something where he's just lost it by himself says a lot. But Mercedes weren't slow this weekend, but that car was just a handful, wasn't it? Even with Russell, Russell crashed it in qualifying, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
Same place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did Hamilton not bid it in China on his own?
when?
2007?
Yeah, but that was before the last
that's
time.
the third one.
Yeah, so we've got 3 now. You're washed
Right,
up.
Lewis. Honestly,
You're
we've
washed
got
up,
stacks
man.
back here. We've got stacks to choose from.
Yeah, we got all the
3 in 17 years.
got all the receipts, my boy.
We've dug up the dirt.
Send
All
them
the
to
receipts, 3.
send
like
them
a
to,
tiny handful of soil. That's how much dirt we've got.
send them to Freddie Vass. Probably get rid of him.
Well, fortunately, after the controversy of Austin, 7 days later, we had no controversy whatsoever as Max Verstappen picked up 2 10-second time penalties for dueling with Lando Norris, as Carlos Sainz this time for Ferrari took advantage of that with the win. This was the point, I guess, that the stewards had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sick of you, mate. Stop it.
Yeah, Russell called it the dive bomb defense in an interview recently. And yeah, Verstappen weren't stopping for nobody. He was like, I will just keep driving you towards the wall until you yield.
The first one, sorry, go on.
No, that's what I was going to get to. The first one is somewhat within the current rules.
Similar to Kota.
The second one,
Audacious.
again, disgusting. Disgusting.
Yeah.
And unlike Kota, I think McLaren could have gone on to win this Grand Prix. And Sainz did a very good job at scampering away with the wing here because Norris was on a charge towards the end of that Grand Prix. The gap came right down to, I think, 4 or 5 seconds. And that, again, is probably showing that Verstappen will go above and beyond what he should be doing to make sure that he disrupts his rival as much as possible.
Again, another point I forgot. We might have to have like a save of the season category in the LB Awards, because
He must
another
have
one.
pooed himself, Leclerc.
So much poo. So much. A shower.
Ferrari. It's a brown Ferrari. Also, Perez and Lawson just swearing at each other, hating on each other, middle fingers out the car.
Yeah, that video of the two guys in the street, just middle fingers.
Yeah. You have to sync to that now. That's those two the whole time for no reason.
But then there was also Lawson having a battle with Colapinto later on in the race, and Perez has team radio about how he's watching it. What does he call him? Is it that idiot again?
That idiot. That idiot.
Yeah, they weren't best of friends here.
Still not, I don't think.
Do you remember Best of Friends?
No. Oh, is that the one where they put the sweets in their mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got a blue tongue. They had to do a task.
It's not really relevant to anything. I just wanted to know if you remembered it.
That's so beer we're breaking.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, not a championship review topic. Next race, the Brazilian Grand Prix. There's a fair amount to talk about with this one.
Blimey.
Verstappen goes from 17th to 1st.
One of the best drivers I've ever seen. It's simple as that. It is one of the best drives I've ever watched.
A lot to talk about on this one, but Verstappen was supreme on another level versus the rest of the field that on that day. And yeah, like we said at the time, I think we'll be remembered in the same same breath as Schumacher Spain 96, Senna Donington 93, etc. He was sublime.
He was sensational. It is one of Ocon's greatest performances of all time, without a shadow. That's who we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was. It was a great performance from Ocon, from Verstappen, from Gasly, a double Alpine podium, which, at this point in the season, they were battling with Williams for 9th, and all of a sudden they were battling with Haas for 6th. It was such a transformational result for them.
And this is what we say so many times, where a team right back there needs to be the team that are on top when chaos ensues. And that could have been any of them, but it was Alpine that somehow came out of nowhere, proper Randy Orton to the league table, and ended up moving themselves into 6th place. And look how it paid off for them at the end of the season.
In all seriousness about Ocon's performance, I do have to say, the way in which he built the lead over everyone else when he was on intermediate tyres, when it was definitely not intermediate weather, was very impressive.
Including Max Verstappen.
Yeah. That was ridiculously impressive. Russell and Norris obviously had the advantage early on. They were starting on the front row of the grid, but they pit for inters where some of the other drivers like Verstappen and the Alpines don't, which costs them when the red flag comes out. Norris has a weird kind of up and down day. Like he has good pace, certainly early on, but a couple of unforced errors.
It's really mucky weekend from McLaren generally. Got so lucky in the sprint race. They're playing around with things a lot this season, and that was another fast but silly moment. And then Piastri has to let him back through because he's run off the track a couple of times. Piastri ends up getting beaten by Tsunoda, I think it is. It's a really topsy-turvy day for McLaren, and the best I think he gets is 6th place. This is pretty much the final nail in the coffin after Verstappen's incredible drive back to 1st.
I don't think we can move on without talking about the first formation lap thing.
I think I quite like remembering Stroll standing next to the gravel with his hands on his hips.
I just realised that Stroll's already taken a bit of a beating in this episode, but maybe I should have saved it for this moment.
It's not really... you know what? The putting it in the gravel is one thing.
No.
Driving.
The spin is one thing.
That's true.
The putting in the gravel is unacceptable.
Crashing is one thing, but he didn't damage the car. You think, all right, you can recover this, mate. You've got this.
The wall's fine because, do you remember Verstappen at Hungary a few years ago on the formation lap? Crashed into the wall.
All good.
Yeah, I was on the way to the grid.
Yeah, on the way to the grid, absolutely.
But
he didn't put it in gravel afterwards. Come on.
I still retain that it is the cut away and the cut back, and he suddenly 20 foot into the gravel trap, and he's like, who put this here? He's just so clueless, and he doesn't leave the track despite there being a digger there and Formula One cars coming past.
Also, I've seen, because producer Kirsty did a video of this on our Instagram page, which everyone should go and follow, by the way, because we're almost at 10k.
Woo! Before YouTube.
Well done, producer Kirsty.
Sensational plug work, Harry. Well done.
Thank you. But we did a video on this, and we said about why didn't you just reverse further? And people said, well, there's a track there. He had so much more tarmac runoff to use. Don't give me there's a track there excuse. There's also
turned it, mate.
There's also no more cars there because
the great thing about binning it means everyone's gone past you.
I saw a lot of people say he would get disqualified.
No.
Which was an interesting point to raise because the answer to that is no.
Yeah. If he'd reversed onto the track and then kept going backwards, maybe a disqualification.
It's not if you engage reverse.
It's quicker to go back the other way.
Just like one hand on the wheel, looking over his shoulder.
Is that more impressive if he's done that?
I can either go 2 miles that way or 1 mile that way.
It's not against the rules to engage reverse. Just don't go the wrong way around the track.
Good. Put that in the book.
Please do. Vegas is up next. Mercedes like cold is basically the overall talking point from this one.
Yeah.
I guess like for the event itself, Harry, this was our second attempt of going racing in Vegas. How did it compare to the first year?
It was less good than the first year. It was still an all right. It was still an all right race. It just wasn't quite. It wasn't quite what 2023 was. The Russell Leclerc battle towards the start of the race was good, but then Leclerc cooked his tyres in cold temperatures.
In 6 laps.
Incredible.
How? I don't know. But Ferrari actually recovered that pretty well by bringing him in and sorting it out. And then that's it. The other thing is Gasly blows up because he hits the rev limiter. Come on.
Very Alpine, isn't it?
It's very Alpine.
They don't believe him.
I've got no power whilst there's smoke coming out the back. Everything looks fine, Pierre.
You're fine. He's like, no. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think Vegas brings bangers. 2 years in a row.
I didn't say
I've enjoyed it.
I didn't say it was bad. I said it wasn't as good as 23.
You said it was the worst race you've ever seen with the words that left your
You're
mouth.
the worst race I've ever seen.
Thank you. Good one. Got him. That'll be question of the week. What's the worst insult you ever heard? That one.
Yeah, you're such a. I'd rather be a terrier than a wolf. Yeah, got
I'd rather you Damon go away.
No, it's Leclerc's post radio from this race might have been the worst insult of all time when he's asked to pick up, and he's like, "Pick up what you want."
Yeah, you bleep pick up. Yeah, got him. Oh, sorry, the radio was on still.
Sorry, oops, the left thing on, which is controlled by my finger pressing it down. You heard that, huh?
You little punk.
Can get you, Ricky.
Oh, it's not Ricky anymore, is it? Oh no, Ricky.
Punching bag in the back.
Hang on a second. We went past Brazil and didn't mention. Hello.
It's a good point.
But
the only reason
it's going to come up again.
We've got the LBs coming up midweek, and I think it's going to be a contender for about 4 awards.
Yeah.
It's going to take home a record about
it might do.
Also, spoiler, folks, we're actually recording the LBs immediately after we're recording this one. So Ben's got things to do. He wants to get on. Come on.
What do you mean we're going to record it straight after this? We'll be in completely different attire.
Very good. Very good point. We'll be like Superman. Spin round. Ta-da.
Exactly like Superman.
Supermen.
Shout out to Perez's double overtake at Vegas, by the way. That was
yes.
Nice.
Well, Checo.
Penultimate race of the season was at Qatar. Oh, by the way, Verstappen won the championship at Vegas. Should probably mention that.
Grazie, ragazzi.
Well done, Max.
Qatar. Verstappen wins. Norris gives him his best challenge until Norris receives a penalty for not slowing under yellows. A rather severe penalty, which sees him go through the pits.
I've written Qatar sucks. Hulkenberg's a battering ram. The mirror. Hamilton and Sainz puncture.
The mirror.
The FIA are rubbish.
The mirror, of course. I can't believe I forgot about the mirror already.
Paul Williams at this point is just disintegrating.
The mechanics are just like slop on the floor. You have to clean them up. They're just mess.
Mopping away mechanics.
Sweat dripping off of them.
I don't think I've got anything to add to Harry's point. That was pretty much a bang on summary.
Succinct notes.
Qatar does suck.
Last race of the season was Abu Dhabi, which I think kind of sucked as well.
Lewis Hamilton comeback. That's the only, and Leclerc. That's the only thing that was interesting. Now we know that the championship had kind of been sealed because Norris was so quick out front. Kind of took away the tension.
But he sealed the Constructors' Championship here, of course.
He did. And well done to McLaren. First time in, 26 years. So bravo to you. But that move from Hamilton at the end, still want to bring it up, was a fantastic comeback from him. Have you seen the montage of him speed lapsing, going through the laps at full speed to catch up to Russell?
No.
It's good. That's good. And it's the whole 14 seconds. What? And Bog's like, Toto's more like, you can do it. And then he does it. It's pretty cool, man. You should see the story.
Well, you told us now. We don't need to.
Honestly, cinema.
Such a vivid description.
I was worried at 70 minutes into the review that we weren't going to get an appearance of Papa Toto, but I was wrong.
You can do it.
Wait till the LBs.
Did you have any notes for Abu Dhabi, Harry?
Verstappen lunge, Perez turned around, Hamilton's last lap move, McLaren win.
Yeah, again, you've nailed that.
Why did I even bother watching the race?
I don't know, mate.
You have missed Bottas just driving into Cambridge.
I know, I was going to put that, but it felt unfair. Like, he's had a bad year, had a rough one. He doesn't need more kicking whilst he's down.
Zhou you doing a donut? No one sees.
The least seen donut in the world.
Oh, poor boy.
I respect he did it. Like, fair play.
Yeah,
fair enough. Is it a Jonah?
Oh, and
excellent.
that is our
excellent work. We can't use that at all now because he's no longer an F1.
God damn it, Joe!
You waited until this point to.
He's never done one before. He's never done one before.
A show nut.
Oh, God.
There you go. Folks, that's 24 races in about an hour and 15 minutes. I think we've done all right there.
Don't say we don't smash it.
Yeah.
Don't say we don't kill the game.
Boom. And we've not missed anything from it. And don't tweet us or
If you go back
comment.
and watch all 24 races, every detail covered.
Every single detail would have been covered, and we haven't missed anything at all.
Good news is, Wednesday's episode, we've got some awards to give out.
Is there a special guest?
I think there might be
Sam,
a special guest.
the cupboard, has it been unlocked?
It's been rattling a lot, actually.
Let me out.
Let me out.
Is he Welsh? What's happened?
His cousin. For those who haven't experienced the LBs before, you're in for a ride, because that's going to be coming up next.
Gareth Pigglesworth, his Welsh cousin.
Gareth, actually. Folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here all year. It's only going to get sillier as we do have the LBs. Of course, the LB question of the week was to vote for your Hall of Famer. We'll be going through those as well. Stick around over the Christmas and New Year's Day period, because we will be having best of games, best moments of the year, and then we'll be back into the content again to kick off the new year. We don't go anywhere over this Christmas break. We are, and the whole winter break, we're here the whole time. If you want to get all ad-free, if you want all your extras, Patreon is in the description. Discord is in the description. You can watch this on YouTube. I implore you to watch the LBs on YouTube so you get the full experience. And that's it. That is it. We're going to see you for another fantastic episode next time. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been... is this a Sunday? Yeah, I've been Harry Each.
And I've been, is this a Sunday? Now remember, keep breaking, like...
God.
Oh, no.